readmission for student case 25-08. Next, we have a closed session agenda item for student readmission, student case 25-31. Motion by trustee Lopez Jimenez, second by trustee Velasquez, and carried unanimously to approve the readmission for student case 25-31. Do we have any public comments on closed session items?
I don't think we do.
Okay. Karen, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Or do we have any adjustments to the agenda? All right. Starting off with 8.1, special recognition, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Aaron Fender.
Yeah, so I am going to start us off thanking Erin for her dedication and 10 years of really transforming our school community and just how you've made a difference in the lives of probably thousands of kids. Erin has, for me, Erin and I go way back. We taught at Windsor High, 2004-ish together. And then she came on as a consultant through Kazan, which was I don't remember what it stands for, but it's the UC Berkeley think tank around CTE and integration with academics. And so she was working with the high school staff and me on major systemic and structural things when I was the high school principal for a couple of years before she was hired. The same year I got hired to be superintendent. So we've been in the trenches together for a long time. I could stand here and talk about all the accomplishments, and we'd be here for a long time. We're in our last, I'm going to be optimistic, hour and a half of Erin's tenure here in Healdsburg. But I do want to just throw out some highlights that really stand out to me. She and I, like I said, in the trenches together. She's been a valued thought partner. She'll be a devil's advocate when I need it. And we laugh and nearly cry together sometimes, but we're always in it for kids. And she, like I said, has transformed our schools. Some of the ways she's done that, we all lived through the difficulty of the separation that was in our elementary schools, and we had the charter school and the AE program and multiple programs in our elementaries and needing to bring those together. And Erin was pivotal in doing that. Some of the work that she did even before we started it in getting us connected to Navigator School, which is in Hollister and Gilroy, is that right? Brought back really strong educational practices that live on today in our schools, in our elementary schools specifically, really transform ELD instruction, math. We actually, I can't say it publicly because I was going to say, we have really good CAF scores for 5th grade in math this next year, but we can't say what they are because they're sequestered still. She brought Joe Bowler in, an expert from Stanford, who really, again, brought a breath of fresh air to our math instruction. My biggest takeaway was she was talking about growth mindset and learning math before growth mindset was a thing, and really internalized that with our teachers and our kids. She helped change policies and outcomes for students at the end in high school. So when we came on together, we went into a multi-year process to change the graduation requirements with an eye towards getting more students to graduate prepared for college and able to make an application because they were A to G prepared. And over the 10 years that we've been here, the statistics have nearly doubled in terms of the percentage of students who now can make an application to a UC or a CSU. A big one that I almost forgot when I was making my mental list that was actually massive was tech integration. We were early Chromebook adopters, and Erin was pivotal in getting our teachers and staff the resources and the know-how to use them. So when COVID hit, we were a few days of getting everything online and getting it going, as compared to places like San Diego City, which I think was over a month before they actually started any instruction because they didn't even have the technology. And that's not only for COVID, but it's real world learning that's necessary for kids too. And she's been a trailblazer lately with AI. And we have by no means answered the AI question that is out there, but she has been a huge trailblazer in getting some good conversations going around that. Like I said, I could go on. I could give you more data. I think the biggest thing is the outcome data around A to G. We are the highest achieving comprehensive public high school in Sonoma and Napa counties. Our Latino students outperform every other school besides one overall, right? So the Latino percentage is higher than the overall percentage of every other high school in those two counties, including St. Helena and Calistoga, which are really well resourced. Those are things to be proud of, and Aaron has had a huge impact on those things happening for kids. I am indebted to you professionally and as a friend. It's been awesome working with you. We're not done. I'm actually very excited to see what she's going to do working for SCO at Amarosa, which is the court and community school where students, when they're expelled, go, right? So she has been an equity warrior for us, and she's going to continue that work, and I really see it as a fitting place for her passion and her courageousness and her leadership there. So excited to see what she does for those kids too, and on behalf of all of our staff and our community and the parents here, thank you, Aaron, for everything you've done for our kids. So, yeah. We have a short video we want to show that we weren't going to show it to you today, but you had Logan and Connie, so we showed it. So we're going to show it again for everybody. And
I have.
Yeah.
I have plenty of tears then.
Maybe it's better that you've seen it already. Yeah. And then we will, I think there's some public comments that people have, and I'm sure some of the trustees might want to speak as well. So, yeah, we'll do the video. Maybe. Is that the loading? These in order, Laurel? Okay. So do those.
All right, we have public comment for agenda item 8.1 from Jamie Kiff.
Thank you.
Good evening, Aaron. It's nice that you're here, but this is for Aaron. I really appreciate. I'm Jamie Kiff, former trustee and current junior high teacher. Aaron, I just want to thank you publicly for what you have done for our students. I had the pleasure of working with you as a trustee, and the way you would speak to us with such intelligence, but like illuminate things that I didn't understand in such a gentle way, which I really appreciate about you. You're such an excellent communicator, and you make people feel so comfortable, but yet empowered. So I want to thank you for that. I think you do amazing work. Chris could have gone on for days and hours with all the data that I'm sure we could have created to show what you have done on paper. But in the classroom, what I see, the tools that you've given me as a teacher, I just want to thank you for that, because you have enabled me and empowered me to be a better teacher, and I've taught for a long time, and I really thank you for that. Our multi-language learners have benefited for years from Aaron's involvement in our district, and it's made such a difference. And whenever I see the numbers, it's exciting to me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the students' incredible work, but it wouldn't happen without the tools that Aaron has given us as teachers. So I want to acknowledge that. And I also want to say how much I appreciate your drive to bring big picture learning to our district. It has made such a difference in our students that aren't always acknowledged and celebrated like they have been in the last few years. So I want to thank you for that. And just personally, you are always a yes person when you can be, and very rarely are you a no person. And if you are, it's always a great discussion, and I appreciate that. I strive to be more like that. So she's always willing to say yes, and if it's a no, there's usually a really good reason, and we find a way to get what needs to get done. And if there's ever anything I've ever wanted to do or go to or learn from, it's always been a yes by the board and by Erin. So I will personally miss you. Our district will miss you. We have been blessed by you, and go get them in your next adventure. Thank you so much for everything.
Next, we have Laurel, who also has a public comment.
Hi. I started working for HUSD a few months after Erin was hired as the CNI director. As a result, I've never known HUSD without Erin as a part of our leadership team. When I was at FMC, I could probably say I had a loose understanding of what exactly it was she was doing for our kids in our schools. But over the last couple of years, since joining the team at the DO, I've gotten to work much more closely with Erin. I've seen up close her passion for serving kids, all kids, and the care, thought, and time she puts in her work. She's been tirelessly devoted to pursuing equity throughout the entire district and is a fierce advocate for the students in our schools who need the most support. I could spend far more than my allotted 3 minutes detailing every committee she's formed and every initiative she has pursued, but the bottom line is Erin shows up for kids. And we're incredibly lucky to have had her here playing such a critical role on our team for our kids for the last decade. Erin, I know you'll do incredible work at Amarosa, but please know how missed you will be here in HUSD. You've done transformative work here, and you have made a lasting impact on this district and this community. Thank you for everything.
So, what do you want to do? Well, I'm going to go down and make a public comment. Well, Erin, you came into my life as a consultant at the high school, and I was immediately intrigued by what you were bringing. You know, I'd hear bits and pieces of it. And then you were hired as our CNI director, and I'm an elementary teacher, and I'm going to always claim that title. You can't stop being a teacher. And I looked at you and your background, and I thought, well, what's she going to do about elementary school? And then I watched you just absorb elementary education. I can list some of the things that Chris did. I love the fact that you brought Joe Bowler here and that you developed that amazing relationship with Stanford and with Joe Bowler's work. It was sitting in a workshop. I mean, I go to every workshop that they'll let me come to as a trustee, and just one aha moment after another working with her for a day was such a gift. And even though I haven't been in a classroom for a while, I still think that way. It was very exciting. You also brought to me a real clarity of how to look at, like, the first dashboard I ever saw. And I went, oh my God, what is this? I don't understand this at all. This doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't mean anything. And just over time, all those reports that you gave us and explanations you gave us for what was going on made it not only clear but important. I love the way you supported our English language learners and the care that you put into providing that kind of expertise that you did to what we're doing. At high school graduation, I started counting the kids who were walking across the stage with the biliteracy cords on, and I thought, we're okay. We're on our way, and that's a very exciting thing. The fact that you help create those support classes for kids when we put in A to G, I looked at that and I kept saying to myself, how do we get kids who, don't have the math expertise to take those kind of math classes, and putting in those support classes and insisting that they go in and support these kids was real critical for me. Big picture learning, of course. Anyway, but personally, you've been a real inspiration for me. And not only do I appreciate all the gifts that you've given to this school district, I'm going to really miss you. And I am excited. I didn't realize that you were going to Amarusa, and then I just heard about it in closed session, and that's very exciting. And those kids and that staff's very lucky to get you. Anyway, I love you.
To all the accomplishments, there's just a lot. I'm just going to miss you. Mm-hmm. And I hope I can still text you in the middle of the night with obscure articles I'm reading about math. And I hope you do the same. Because it's been a great, just
great years.
Yeah, it has been great years. So thank you.
Watch the video.
Work with you this past, 9 years, and you've given me so many opportunities and places for me to learn and grow as an educator.
Good luck in the future. We'll miss you here.
Thank you so much for your mentorship during this last 3 years. Your help has meant the world to me.
Thank you, Erin, and goodbye.
Have a good time on your new adventure. We will miss you.
Thank you for everything.
Bye, Erin. It's been so great to meet you in the last year. Thanks for helping get started here. I really appreciate all the support you've given me.
Good luck. Congratulations.
Congratulations, you've been a friend, a mentor, a great leader for this district, and I know you're going to make a big difference up at the county level. Look forward to seeing you in the future. Goodbye. Take care, my friend.
Adios. Have fun.
Hi, Erin. Great working with you.
We're gonna miss you.
Hola Erika, soy Verónica. Le deseo buena suerte en su nuevo trabajo. Que tenga felices vacaciones.
And good luck in your new challenge.
Thank you for all that you've done, and good luck on the next step in your journey.
Hi Erin, te deseo mucha suerte en tu nuevo emprendimiento. Felices vacaciones y que tengas muy buenos días. Bye.
Thank you for everything. We will miss you. Thank you for the cool book.
Bye Erin, we're gonna miss you so much. It's been really
excited about your next chapter. It sounds very rewarding and challenging.
Thank you for education. We're gonna miss you. Bye.
Oh.
Have a fun summer. If you go straight to the workforce, have fun too. Just different kind of fun.
Bye. Good luck and thank you for all the books. Bye.
Hey, Bobby.
Good luck, Aaron. Good luck in the future, and go stick figure. Always listen to that music.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the books. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Bye. Send her some love. Good luck, Aaron.
Can I make one quick comment? Aaron, I just wanted to thank you so much for, you've been in your position the whole time that I've been on the board, and you're the person that we hear from the most, maybe the second most. And I just think it's the context and information and data and your commitment to always giving us really high quality information that just has really, really helped to educate me in my decision making, and also to educate me for future decision making, and also to just really understand the complex issues and be able to hopefully do a good job. And I think you and Chris both have that role in some way, but you've just always really brought us things with such professionalism and context and good information and visuals. And I just particularly want to thank you for that. And I just thought it was the best thing ever. And the kids said, thank you for educating us, because that is what all of your work, and so many other people have said that in a more pointed way than I can. But thank you for educating my kids. Thank you for educating us.
All right. Does anybody have anything else to add? No? All right. Moving on to public comments on non-agenda items. All right. From Aaron about board actions.
Yeah. I wish the agenda was in a different order, because this is a little awkward after what just happened, but thank you for the special recognition. So I'm Dr. Erin Fender. I'm the outgoing Director of Curriculum and Instruction. As we know, tonight marks my final board meeting after 10 years of dedicated service to HUSD. And I'm incredibly proud of the work I've done to improve student achievement and foster a positive culture in our schools. However, I feel compelled to speak publicly about the events that have unfolded behind closed doors regarding my employment. In October 2024, 3 current board members, Mr. Potmasil, Ms. Lopez Jimenez, and Ms. McAllister, along with former members Ms. Romo Flores and Ms. Lopez Pardo, directed the superintendent to reassign me within 1 week and deny me the 9.5% raise that was granted to every other employee this year. This prompted my resignation in November, effective the end of the school year. To this day, none of the 5 board members I've named has met with me, shared concerns with me, or provided any explanation or data regarding why they wanted me forced out. Despite repeated invitations following my presentations to offer feedback or questions, I've received none. Also, none of the board members responded to my email requesting a meeting. I would have preferred to handle this privately, but continued refusal to speak directly to me has left me this public forum as my only option to share my side of the story. From what I understand, no effort was made to gather input from my colleagues at the district office, our principals, or educators to inform the actions you directed regarding my employment and compensation. This lack of communication and transparency is deeply disappointing, especially in a district that claims to value trust, collaboration, and restorative practices. The actions taken toward me by this board contradict the very principles we ask our students and staff to uphold. Over the past decade, HUSD has made tremendous progress Even through historic challenges, including wildfires, a flood, a pandemic, political turmoil, I've been proud to be a part of this team that rose to meet the challenges through innovation, resilience, and unwavering belief in what's possible for our students. My record stands on that work. The decision to push me out without dialogue, without evidence, and without basic human decency has taken a toll on my well-being and on my family. I've struggled to explain to my 14-year-old son why this has happened, especially when I have always worked with integrity and service to all of our students. This is not about a paycheck, it's about how we treat people. Leadership matters. Your actions set the tone for our district. I urge you to reflect on how this was handled and how it could have been handled differently. If we are truly a district committed to trust, restorative practices, and shared leadership, we must start by modeling those values at the top. I also strongly encourage you to rectify the salary schedule of the Director of Curriculum and Instruction to include the 9.5% adjustment effective July 1, so that the incoming director does not inherit the financial penalty that was unfairly imposed upon me. My time in HUSD has been guided by a commitment to doing what is right, even when it's hard. I hope that remains my legacy, and I sincerely hope that those who come after me are treated with more fairness, transparency, and respect than I have received.
Do you have an approval on the consent agenda? Approval on the consent agenda? Because we can't reply.
Yeah, we can't
Yeah.
reply. The consent.
Consent agenda.
Second.
All right.
Oh, yeah, vote.
Oh, yeah. All in favor?
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to public comments on agenda items. Nope, saying none. All right. 11.1 student business. Turf material for the Fitch Mountain Campus Field Placement Project.
So we have Tanea Dale here, who is our construction manager with Counterpoint. You're all familiar with her. And we have a decision to make tonight regarding a design aspect on the Fitch Mountain campus. So she's going to walk us through.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So in our most recent prioritization of our bond projects, the first project that we're tackling is the Fitch Mountain Field project. And one of the big decisions that I need made in order to give direction to our design team to hopefully work really hard over this summer to come back and show our, we actually have an August meeting set with the staff to show them sort of the preliminarily proposed plans, is whether we're designing a natural turf field or we're designing a synthetic turf field. And so I brought, this is not the most current, but we don't actually have like plans that, drawn up yet because again, we're just starting this process. We walked the campus with administration and looked at what we want to make sure we're including. But this was the master plan. So essentially what we're taking is the existing field. We're going to replace that field. We're going to do some fencing work. We're going to do some outdoor learning spaces. Right now, the field is this really awkward piece at that campus. It's got a fence between it and the main campus, not fencing completely to the public. So it's not really, it's a challenge for monitoring the kids to go out there. And it feels very disconnected. So you've got, you know, just by this plan, looking at it, like a quarter of the campus that can't really feel as part of the campus. So one of the big directives is to bring that into the campus. And the other issue is that field is unusable for a very large amount of a year. When you look at the topography of where that field is and you look up at the mountain, you realize that underground water is draining to that location from the mountain all the time. So any moisture that happens is coming and draining at the ground level, not just surface level there. So it's always wet, even in, I think the site would say, even in the spring, early summer, fall, it's just wet. So we need to replace the field. It's in poor repair. We've got some things we want to accomplish to make it feel more part of the campus, to make it a better learning environment and more usable by our students. So, and if you can go to the next slide, I threw together just some of the general natural turf versus synthetic turf comments. And again, I want to have a discussion. I want to hear concerns. I want to hopefully answer questions. But I want to look at this with thinking about what are we trying to do here and what's the best decision for our campus with those goals in mind. So natural turf is for sure cooler. It's a natural product. Dirt doesn't take in the heat of the sun of the day like cork, sand, some of the other things do. So it is naturally cooler. It requires a lot of water. We've talked about the fact that, yes, the city has run recycled water into town. That's great. That's helping us at Healdsburg Elementary. I don't know of any plans in any near future for them to run recycled water towards the high school and Fitch Mountain. So it does take a huge amount of water. I don't actually know sort of what your water bills are, but I know they're high. I know what my water bill is in town. So I know they're really high. So there's a cost and there's an environmental concern with that, right? Natural turf is subject to things that synthetic turf isn't. Gophers, issues with, as water sits, it moves, kids walk on it, then the grass dies. There's just a lot of just natural things that happen with that. That's just normal with grass. It does require more regular maintenance. So your regular maintenance cost is higher, although I will say with synthetic turf, you don't have a lot of regular maintenance, but you do have eventually a one-time replacement maintenance cost. And I think, the good thing in the district is you already have natural turf fields and you already have synthetic turf fields. So I think we've talked about some of these things before. But you have to mow it, you have to maintain a sprinkler system, you have to do all those kinds of things. So there's a more standard maintenance with it. The wet and unusable is probably the biggest downfall, I think, to natural turf is that there's huge chunks of the year where natural turf is just not a good place to be. It's just, it's raining and it takes the recovery time for a natural turf field takes a long time. We plan on, no matter what we do, natural or synthetic, doing a very robust drainage system below because of that contour and the fact that we've just got water coming through there all the time. And so no matter what we do, we're going to have to do a pretty extensive drainage system with that. Natural turf is a natural product, right? So that's another positive. Synthetic turf is warmer. It is not as warm as using a rubber infill. There's also, in the last few years, there's a plastic coated infill that is used. The district standard for all the other fields that we've done is cork, which is the coolest of all the infill products, but it will be warmer. You're on those days when it's hot, your synthetic turf field is definitely going to be warmer. You don't need irrigation, so you don't have that water component. It pretty much can be used all year round. I know the soccer team uses the high school field in the rain pretty often. And even when it has rained, the recovery time, again, is almost nil. It recovers really quick, and you can be on it right away. Another positive to synthetic turf, and this kind of came up when we were doing our first design meeting, was, what are the things we would want to use that field for athletically? So, you can stripe synthetic turf and then never have to come back and restripe it again. If you want to do striping for natural turf, again, that adds to your maintenance cost and somebody having to go out there and stripe it. And I think one of the other big hot topics lately has been the turf blades and what are they made of, and the fact that they're made of plastics. This is something I actually kind of dove into pretty heavily when the talk of PFAS started coming up, and had a lot of conversations. And I'm going to admit that I did not read the reports that I received. But there are a lot of independent reports that have been done by third-party testing labs where they've gone out and actually tested, hundreds of synthetic turf fields and natural turf fields. Interestingly enough, natural turf fields pretty often actually come up with just as high or higher PFAS just in the naturally occurring dirt, which I didn't know until I was looking at these reports. So I think that was interesting. But the turf that we're looking at has been tested, is specifically lab created without any PFAS. So it is a PFAS-free product, the turf itself. And then you have natural cork, you have sand, which some of those things naturally have some of the things in them. But I just wanted to talk about that because I think that's a big piece that a lot of people are concerned about these days. So this is just a dump. I'll turn it back to you as far as what questions you have, what priorities do you have, what is important to you?
I think one thing that is relevant is the fact that we killed the field 3 years ago during the drought because we had to reduce water use, as did everybody in Healdsburg. And we had just put in natural turf at the high school, so we chose to keep that alive. There is no plan currently from the city to bring recycled water to the high school, Fitch Mountain side of town. There is recycled water coming to HES and Rec Park, but there's no funds to extend it farther. So we don't have any sort of guarantee that's ever going to happen if we were to choose natural. So the likelihood that we would have to kill the new field, I think, is very high. In the next 7 to 10 years, there's going to be another drought, especially with all the Eel River, Russian River, Potter Valley Dam removal issues that are coming down. So that's another issue possibly for us in this decision.
And one thing I meant to mention and forgot, but it's relevant, not relevant. In the new plan, one of the things that we talked about is we're looking to add probably somewhere between, just based on the initial counts, 20 to 25 trees around the perimeter of that field. Because one, around the perimeter of that field, it was not reflected in the original master plan. But again, that's something that we're, because we recognize as we walked around, what do we want to do here? And what are we trying to create? And one of the conversations has always been it's hot there. And if we're concerned about the turf being hotter, how do we help mitigate that? And how do we bring back more greenery, more natural, just natural shade? It's not going to protect you from the rain, but it will be a great space. The other thing that we're going to do as part of this as well is where the field and the garden sort of are next to each other, there's that amphitheater that's been out there for a long time. Again, it's outside the fence, so it doesn't get used because, again, it's a supervision issue. It's awkward. Really incorporating that back into, so if you can imagine a row of trees going down the edge of the field to that amphitheater, and making all of that just really feel like everything around the soccer field part being outdoor, shaded, learning, breakout, teaching spaces, not just edges of grass. So I meant to mention that when I was talking about the plan. So.
And just to be clear, when we're talking about synthetic turf versus natural turf, we're talking about the playing surface of the athletic field, not the grass area that goes up into the amphitheater.
Correct.
So, yeah.
So, Tanea, just to confirm, we really would just be talking about one soccer field? Would the field be lined to be one, standard size soccer field, and then around that would be edging plants, outdoor classroom, kind of collaborative spaces, other plants and trees?
Yeah. So what we're talking about, and again, that field is actually larger than the high school field.
Right.
So we're going to bring a little bit more, and again, I love, Erica has always talked about, we're softening the edge of that, right? Right now it's a hard fence and it's just very rigid. Right. So softening that, adding trees there, but we would still have a high school size soccer field, which if we went synthetic turf, I think, and again, we haven't gotten through this in design to that point, but we would probably line it for that, or at least do corners so that you could do cross lower grade activities. Again, if we're looking at size, it would fit a high school field. So it would be basically the equivalent of the high school field there and still have room for the trees and the learning spaces and all of that edge softening.
The city does, or has, and does do younger children soccer games there. And so like she said, we could, I don't know if we'd stripe it, or we can actually paint it with stripes too if we want, and the paint just goes away. But you could probably set up 3 or 4 soccer fields going the opposite way for the little ones. And I did reach out to the city Parks and Rec department, and if they got a vote, they requested synthetic. They also showed me no, they don't get a vote, but they did show me Cal OSHA they haven't released it yet. It's a draft report. They've been doing a study about synthetic turf use, and if there's any issues in the study, and I read the summary of the study, they saw no tie to any sort of disease or anything that could be developed from synthetic turf. So it's kind of debunking a lot of the stuff we've heard in the news.
Well, I guess this is our neighborhood, so we I walk the dog around this space a lot, and then my kids have obviously been at FMC for many years, and I know all the problems at the field. I'm also weirdly used to it the way that it is, and I know that's not a good thing in this situation, but I definitely think it's going to just be a massive improvement to change the fencing around, kind of make these spaces more contiguous and usable, because that whole back area is really nothing except people hanging out and smoking, or I don't know what, just hanging out back there. Not really. None of the kids. I'm just talking about I walk by a lot when school's not in session. No, I'm joking. Sorry, it's a total joke. But just that, that there's neighborhood people hang out up in, and not in a creepy way, but just people hang out in that kind of amphitheater area. And when school's not in session, because it's not really it seems like it's not part of the school because of the way the fencing is. It's sort of like a place where people tend to hang out. And then, of course, people use the fields. And I have said many times as a trustee that I think one of the things that I love about living in Healdsburg and I love about our schools is that basically they function as parks when school's not in session. I think it's a huge resource to the community and something that we can all be really proud of, that we have these beautiful facilities that people can use. So that all plays into my feelings about turf, because I know when we put in the beautiful turf field on the track, that meant that the whole area had to be fenced in order to preserve the turf, and that the track, from what I observed, at least for the first couple of years until there was sort of a schedule for gates and practices around it, kept people from exercising at the track in the kind of numbers that they were prior to the beautiful new field going in, which was kind of, I thought, an unforeseen consequence of making that decision. So obviously we had this, facility that's really well utilized and, wonderful, but we were also kind of keeping the public out and drawing a line of this is school stuff and you're only allowed to come in here sometimes. And, just that may be appropriate. It may be not appropriate. That's a different discussion. But I guess I'm just interested in, we know that this field is sort of a no man's land most of the year, that even the kids can't play on it a lot of the time. My concern is that I know, and I asked my kids what they thought too, that so much play goes on the blacktop, and then to have artificial turf, it's sort of like asking the kids to only play in these sort of artificial, and I guess I have kind of a gut response to that, which I don't have a good reason for, because I hate the water problem is real and whatever, but just this feeling that the coolness of that field in the hot months, the way that it feels to have a real grass field, especially when they look across the street at the high school and there's those gorgeous turf. I mean, we obviously have the artificial turf, but we also have beautiful green baseball and softball diamonds right there too. So I think, to just sort of create this situation where the kids are always playing on artificial ground, it's just sort of feels a little wrong to me. And, but then I also obviously don't want the district to be in a situation where it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to upkeep this field for just that reason. I do think the heat's an issue. And I know, my kids my kids were only at the junior high for, I believe, 1 year since the turf field there, which was completely culture changing to have that space for them. But they do talk about the heat from the turf is real. It's a different feeling than playing on grass. And so yeah, those are my kind of thoughts and concerns.
I could talk a little bit about the high school field and I think that was the first turf field we had here. And I think there was a lot of concern about like what's gonna happen to it if everybody has access to it all the time. Like there was a lot of that. And the good thing is we've lived with that field. The junior high field isn't fenced at all. I drive by that field at least twice a day. There's always, in any day of the weekends, it's packed. So I think there was some, I'm not going to say I don't disagree with you, but I think there was some nervousness when that first one went in. And it was the high school field, right? It was our prize field that we're going to do competitions on and everything. So we are going to be talking about fencing this in just for student use. But again, there's 3 gates already on that south fence, and those would be maintained as, could be open all time. So I think, yes, there would be some closure of it, but I don't think it would have that like closed off, don't use it sort of feeling. Just
well,
to
and
address
also
that
there's
issue.
no fence on the end of that field, which is super weird because it's fenced and gated over here, but then all you have to do is walk on from it's. So it's
and we're talking about
very
changing that because
inconsistent.
again, if we want to open this up and this be part of the usable campus all day, every day, you can't just have a situation where a runner's gonna run.
A runner.
I have a question. When you're talking about fencing, I mean, I always thought that, can't remember the name of that street. That Harold? Why there was no fence on the end of the field. And I remember many discussions about parents being upset that this elementary school couldn't be locked down, and I just would burst out laughing because it was wide open on one end. When you're talking about the fencing, what about Gibbs Grove? Where is it going to fence across there, or you're not fencing Gibbs Grove? Or
So you're talking about the Redwood Grove at the top of the hill?
Yeah, you probably didn't know it was called Gibbs Grove.
No, I didn't know that. But yeah, so we actually talked about that.
I know, but it's named after a former principal.
Okay. You learn something every day. We talked about that.
In case you want to know.
There's no sense, again, if you're going to open this up and this be more usable and kids being out there all the time, now having all of that open kind of creates another supervision issue.
It does. It's huge.
So what we talked about is, and it's not depicted on here, but cutting it close to the amphitheater area. So that would be within, but you would still have this open, natural area. And we could put gates in there so that if you wanted to take a class out into the Grove for some reason, if that was something administration wanted, we could not do that. There's lots of options of that. But again, 1, it doesn't make sense to pay for fencing up that hill. And 2, it created a lot more area to supervise.
Oh, it's impossible to supervise it.
And it's around the corner and
Oh, yeah.
So we definitely looked at that and have a plan for that.
So the fence would be
kind of behind those 2 trees at the top of the amphitheater.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to incorporate the amphitheater into it so that it could be more accessible and used.
Mm-hmm.
But the Grove, I mean, when we walked, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys don't use the Grove really for anything.
And would you? Would you?
Sure, which, as I remember, was some of the original intent, was that there was going to be, available microphone plugins and stuff out in the amphitheater,
But then it got outside the fence, so nobody goes there.
Yeah. So
I forgot about it.
I would like to really know, Erica, what you think about. I mean, I always thought it was a real shame that kids can't go or don't go out on the field area except in I consider a real limited amount of time. And you're the principal. I'd like to know what you think would be really wonderful for your kids.
And can I add a question on to Judy's question that's related? Do you need all of that field? Good question.
So Tanea really, I mean, everything that she said, I agree with. We've been talking, so we were I've been part of all the conversations. So yes. And I also said, I don't really want to make the decision about turf, or I want you guys to make that decision. All I want is something, and what I've always wanted is something that kids can be on all year round, because it is a shame that we have to close it off all the time, so often. And even when it's, especially since we killed it 3 years ago after the drought, that even when it's dry, it's just in terrible shape.
Oh,
so
it's awful.
Really terrible. So I just want something that kids can be on year round. I like the idea of, it not being fenced. And so it's just part of campus. Do we need to go all the way to Harold? No, but I wouldn't really want to cut it off, And so, I mean, and right now our students are amazing, right? They even when we go on the field, they know they can't go past this tree. So it might be that they don't have access to the amphitheater area during lunch and recess, but I'm not worried about that, and there'll be enough supervision on the field. So do we need all of the space, but will we make use of the field a lot more often? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I asked that because I was on the board when we voted for the turf at the junior high, and we voted for the turf at the high school, and I do fully appreciate how that is utilized year-round by the community, by the students, by the teams, everybody. But I have this gut thing like Rose about that much AstroTurf, right? Like that is a massive, massive field of plastic. And that's why I'm thinking, is there a compromise here? Is there a way to do half of it in grass and half of it in AstroTurf? I don't even know which half or why, but you know what I mean? Like something that I know, like, would it be grass closer to where the kids play, or would it be, and then have AstroTurf with some fields marked, smaller fields on the right that's more available year round, but they can still touch that darn grass during the year, and we'd kind of compromise. I mean, the ultimate compromise, right? Of yes, we have some turf issues, but we don't have all the turf issues, and yes, we have the artificial turf issues, but not all. We'd have some cooler areas, some warmer areas. We have I don't know. That's just my crazy. I just thought of that when you put the picture up. Even after all the conversations and looking at the picture.
So when I actually taught at Fitch Mountain, the old Fitch Mountain School, where the field was on an entirely different side, high school side, we often took our kids up into Gibbs Grove, which is grass underneath all those trees. We just did. And now I suspect that people can't because of the way the fences are all around it, that you can't get there. But
it wouldn't necessarily
also,
be
there's
a
a lot of
recess.
neighbors that walk their dogs and let their dogs go to the bathroom up there. So
yes, I
pretty
know.
bad. So we do take our school pictures are outside now that we're back with the company that does them outside, and we always have to clean up before that.
Well, but
so
if
that is one issue
fenced
too.
in some of it, right? And I will say,
Fence it in.
going back to my weird half and half idea, I really wonder, why do we need a full-size soccer field at Fitch Mountain, right? Like, is that a priority for us? Is it a priority for the city? If so, then the city should help us pay. But because that's not necessarily needed for Fitch Mountain. But definitely fields and accessibility are.
It could be used for other district activities as well. Like you could have a soccer tournament through the high school that could play on that field and the other adjacent field. So there's,
What are our priorities?
Right.
Right.
And given field space in town, it's a tough thing to make a decision to take away some field space. So, yeah.
I'd like to this is a side note. When we put in the artificial turf for the soccer field at the high school and redid the grass field, there was some pushback from the community because there were restricted hours on using that. But I also was there outside on the sidewalk one time, and I watched people, walking or running the track in the middle of PE classes. And with no regard for the fact that there are classes going on, high school classes going on, and they were interrupting them because it was the time that they wanted to do the walk. And I actually had somebody, come up to me and complain. And I said, well, it was a city bond. It was a school bond, not a city bond, that built that. And I also sat in the president's seat when one of our attorneys in this town came up and shook his finger in my face because he couldn't play tennis on the high school tennis courts at 9 a.m. because there's class in session and there were PE teachers who were taking kids out. And yes, the tennis players would pack up, but ultimately they lost 10 and 15 minutes of their class teaching period. So they can use those facilities when school's not in session, but not during the school day. It's kind of ridiculous.
I felt weird bringing it up because I don't think we have total consensus on the board about this, and we don't need to relitigate it today. And I agree with I agree with everything that you said, and my view of it stands that when school's not in session, and I 100% do not think that it should be the first priority of the board to create recreational facilities for the general public to use when kids aren't at school. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the fact that, that I feel like we need to calibrate our facilities to something that we feel safe having the public use when school's not in session.
When school's not in session.
And I feel like it is a community resource. And I just feel like it wasn't like that when I was growing up, and I like it that it's like that here. I think it reflects the values of the town in many ways. And so
it does.
So,
it's just
I'm certainly not
time.
suggesting that we should put a grown-up parkour instead of a field for kids or something like that. I'm just saying that when we created this facility that was too precious to be left open, it changed the fabric of things, and it changed accessibility for people who were utilizing the thing. So, I don't know what that has to do with this discussion. I do know that we have had vocal public feedback from people about the use of artificial turf by the district. I do think that we're going to hear about it, and that doesn't mean that it's the wrong decision. I'm really interested. I mean, I love Donna's suggestion. I think I was sort of imagining that if the edges of this field and all of the planning that goes around it are very sort of green and bucolic and cool and shady, then that addresses a lot of the issues that, because it creates an environment around this artificial turf that is
provides relief,
oxygenated or whatever. I don't know.
Well,
more natural.
But
more natural, because I think it's an issue. I do think FMC, it's not, it is a school that has a lot of acreage of stucco and blacktop, and there's times, especially before the shade structures, where it could feel kind of and so grass is such a great mitigator of that feeling and creates a more natural cooling kind of feeling. So that, I just think we wouldn't choose to lose that, even though the field now is not usable.
And maybe that's, again, looking at compromises, because I want to make sure we're looking at this with sort of the goals of the project, right? That was my initial, what are we trying to do here? And we can do both with either, but I want to look through that lens, right? What are we trying to do for the kids here?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the good compromise, and again, that's why I mentioned the trees, because I wanted to bring up that we are providing natural, and 20 to 25 trees is a lot of trees. I'm hoping we have some good, wonderful areas to sit. Because one of the things that bugs me is you look at these fields and then you see all these pop-up tents all over. If you have natural trees to sit under and maybe we're putting a lot of landscaping that can be sat on, and whether that's grass around it and focusing that. And yes, you're now planting more grass, so you got to irrigate, but this is, again, that balance. So maybe we look at that as much of the area around the turf. And I think we can talk about that. Do we need a high school size field? Maybe we don't. That's not for me to answer. I just do what you guys tell me to do. But maybe we shrink the size of the field a little bit if you don't want a high school field, and make it, more soft areas around it. We'd have to talk about how that would affect that program. But again, at an elementary site, you don't need necessarily a regulation field unless that's something the district really feels strongly you need. So I think there are
Do you
options.
feel like, and has Erica said, or I don't know, teachers, students, like if there was half a turf field, and this is just setting aside the question of whether we need the full size field or not, is that enough play space for students to get out there and, or do they play on the full size field?
So I mean, again, that's a great idea. Never thought of that. And we are leaving, again, we're definitely leaving the Grove all as
That's all
natural
grass.
turf.
Natural.
And again, my hope is that now we're going to, create a really more useful place out there. We were talking about like maybe you could have promotion out there, or like,
Yeah.
we've never really been able to do things like that out there because it's so awkward and out of the area.
I was going to ask, like, is there space out there, and is it possible to create an amphitheater space that's actually big enough for all of the students to be in so that it could be used in good weather the same way that the multi-purpose room is used?
So we looked at this.
That would be awesome.
The amphitheater, those are actually retaining walls. So it was sort of a dual purpose, right? It's helping keep the slope in place. So the goal is not to touch that. But we did talk about putting in a larger stage that, one, is accessible, and two, would be more usable for that. And I think that area, you could put your whole, you could easily fit everybody up there with what's there now. So just enhancing it so that it's more usable.
Yeah. And fenced in.
And part of the campus. And then you can go out there and do different things.
And access, considering where the preschool is, it wouldn't be a problem because there's going to be a new
fencing.
passageway that goes kind of past the field.
So, and again, this is, so we did talk about the fence between the garden and we definitely want to keep fence between the garden and the field and the amphitheater. But right now it's 6 foot high. We're talking about making it 4 foot high.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a barrier for people to not go in and take themselves little pieces of the garden.
Yeah.
But it will bring all of that down. So it's not in your face high.
I mean, artificial turf is usable pretty much all the time for playing. It really is true.
Yeah. But I will say, I feel like in the summer, I mean, for the same reason as the asphalt, if it's a 94-degree day, it's not really usable, I don't think.
Right.
I mean, it's
kind of once you hit 90-ish.
doggone
It's too
hot.
hard to be on.
Yeah.
10 degrees hotter, right?
But I think so much more of the school year is in the wet
It's in
months.
the rain,
and
I know.
so we're looking at,
I know,
you
it's
know,
more like
that
May and September.
even if it's beautifully drained, I just think about the high school fields are so saturated during the wet months that you can't really.
Yeah, we can put in really good drainage. It's still going to be I don't want to set the expectation that putting in drainage will make a natural turf field used all year. It's not going to happen.
I think doing a U12 field, there's something compelling about it. Where if you center that field there, you could really soften the edges and have more natural around it with the trees. And I think it actually could be kind of cool. And I don't know that it doesn't take a ton of playing space away. You couldn't have a high school tournament now with 2 soccer fields, but who cares? Like that's not one of our main goals anyway.
This is to scale and everything. Your smaller field and your bigger field. That's
So if you
to
take
scale.
that smaller field, center it a little bit more, and then soften the edges even more, it's kind of nice.
I think at the junior high, wouldn't it be nice if there was shade all the way around that, right?
Think about the trees at HES adjacent to the baseball field, right?
Right.
If you've ever gone and watched a kid play there, it's awesome to sit under those trees and watch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And you get a break from the heat. And
It's kind of an interesting compromise. I hadn't thought of.
I hadn't even.
So you talked about areas where the kids could come out or a class could come out and sit. So where are you thinking about
We
that?
haven't. We're talking in sort of the 50,000 foot. Once I get direction, then that's what they're going to spend the summer diving into.
Okay.
And then in August, and so that's part of why I'm pushing this. I'm the one saying we need to make a decision because this project we're aiming to break ground next June, which means I need to be into the state architect by October.
So if you
I got to keep going.
it's the same architectural team who's doing the Grove at the high school right now, right? So conceptualize what we're doing in the Grove there and some similar type things around the edges of that field.
With more grass, maybe.
With more grass,
actual
seating areas.
Natural grass to sit on.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would be very
I think
similar
that would
design,
be-
I'd assume.
So the turf grass is decision number one because it affects everything. That's what you're saying.
When I start designing, I need to go in a direction. Like you've got stuff that was on your consent agenda about all the things I have to do a project like this. Like I have to go out this summer and drill holes to find out what the ground is like. They have to analyze that based on natural turf or synthetic turf. So I have all these things that drive decisions that I need to know. Reality of it.
Well, I could just say that if we can figure out a way to minimize the overall amount of synthetic turf and to focus all of the remaining spaces on green, lush might be overstating it a little bit, but kind of that, shady, and that's, I think, I love what you said about the pop-up tents all around, that kind of like if we had a natural version of that sort of protection. And then, I mean, I agree that there's no finer place ever to watch a Little League game than at HES out on the side where all the trees are. It's just beautiful. So it's kind of, I do think that there's something very flat and blocky about the way that FMC feels visually, that if there's a way to mitigate that through these changes, then I feel like that would be amazing. And it would also be amazing to have a usable amphitheater that I think would get used a lot if it was truly a place like my elementary school. Granted, it was San Diego, but we had all of our beginning of the day meetings at our outdoor amphitheater. It was right next to the school. We didn't even have an enclosed gym. And I know that's not realistic here, but it changes the vibe. And to be out in the air when the weather's nice is really great for everybody, I think. So, yeah.
I would add that I don't know that I would center the field. I think that pushing it away from the blacktop is, you know what I mean? The lines, just because you're going to have a lot of dead space on that.
Well, we'll let the architect play with it. We're not designing right now.
Who's going all the way out to the corner?
I think
And
the
the
guidance,
usable part's going to be closer to the school and the asphalt.
the guidance we need is what size field and what material, right? Are we going natural or synthetic? And I'm fully comfortable, and I'm hearing maybe a smaller field, like a 12U field, which would be appropriate for the age of those kids at the school, with lush greenery short of losing kids in it around the edges.
Yeah, we're not talking like tropical rainforests around the edges.
You can't.
It won't
grow
last.
that here.
No, and I think that's I love the idea of and again we're gonna have irrigation, so it's not a problem. And actually that'll help with actually some of the cost, because if I'm not building as big a field, synthetic or natural, my drainage area that I really have to pay attention to is a little smaller, because planters don't require drainage under them like a field does. So that might help with some of the budget, and maybe we have a little bit more money to do more things around the field. Bigger trees.
So,
I mean, is there any reason why a smaller field isn't a good idea?
I think the only argument would be, like, you might get the high school advocates saying we could use it, and then city saying, like, you're taking away field space potentially that they might use.
Do they already depend on this as a high school?
No, not at all. Yeah,
Or recreational, right?
No. So we're taking away.
It's already away.
A potential thing. It's already away.
It's
We would
already
be
away.
adding if we. That's why I don't think it's that big a deal.
And again,
Yeah.
I bring us back to what is our
Right.
purpose with this project. That's always how I try to look at things.
And I can check in with the city, make sure we're not like ruining some decades long program they have there by doing a 12U field pretty quickly.
Well, I mean,
So,
again, I like this direction we're headed, but I really even wonder if an official U12 field is needed at the school. No one's going to be playing regulation soccer games during lunch.
You never know, though. We may end up having some after-school teams at some point with ELOP money, and it would be good to have a regulation field appropriate for that age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to take anything away,
No,
but I feel like, gosh, we've never had a regulation lined field out there before, have we?
Well, we have the field space.
Even
Yeah, it's just a swamp.
there's a lot of pickup and a lot of practices.
Swamp
and things.
or dry.
Right. So, so this is an action item. We want to make, and what I'll do if we pass this, say in a 12U field, soften the edges, short of lush, I will check in with the city right away to make sure that we're not screwing something up for community resource. So
I move we do that.
synthetic 12U field with
Yes, with lots of
greenery around it and very tall
Sit
trees.
on the ground in a nice, cool environment space.
Okay. Donna
It's something
seconded
that
it.
they can all use year round.
Yeah.
Because as someone who went to FMC for elementary school, I feel like I used that field like 5 times in my lifetime as an elementary school student because
you
it was
just
fenced
don't- you're
off.
never out
So
there.
I'm pro like the fencing of around and being able to, the kids now being able to use it because like I said, I feel like I never used that field as a kid. So
My son said the same thing.
So we had do we get a second? We got it. Okay. So you want to call for a
Sorry.
vote, Lupe? Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
super excited. I will bring something back in the fall for you guys to see.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 11.2 student learning, HUSD LCAP plan.
All right. So tonight's the night we look for approval of the LCAP and some accompanying documents. I was here a week ago. Debbie's going to pull up some slides. Oh, yeah. Okay. While they get that organized, sorry. Oh, no. Did I not send you the ones from tonight? Okay, that's fine. Yes, you do. Oh, look at that. Okay, these are from last week? Okay, that's fine. I did, but I may have forgotten to send them. Yeah, that's okay. We can do this without slides. So we went through all of this. You can go ahead and put those up. It's okay. Thank you. Sorry, I'm being confusing. Last week, all of the documents are the same. Really, I was honing in on kind of the timeline, and let's go to the one back. Maybe one forward. Sorry. And again, there. Yeah. Okay. So the reason the packet is, one of the reasons the packet's so large is because you've got a lot of reading material in there. Budget overview per parents is just 2 pages, right? That's a simple, here's our overall budget, and these are the sources that money comes from, right? Thankfully, it's not super hard to read, thankfully. It's one of the few things in there that I think most people could figure out. And then you've got the LCAP, and we went through this. I focused last time on the increased and improved services and outlining that long bulleted list that's in the slide deck about increased and improved services, and that is to make sure that we are best supporting our English language learners, our foster youth, our homeless, and our students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And then there's pages of budget tables, and those align for the most part with the overall budget. The difference is there are things in our budget that are not in the LCAP, right? Like we don't put all our maintenance costs in there. We don't put some of the construction costs. Some are because they're related to improving our learning environment, but it isn't dollar for dollar, right? Not every single dollar is in the LCAP, and that's to be expected, right? We're not saying this is what we spend on cleaning supplies and bus gas and all that stuff. What I meant to go through tonight, and I have slides that I can send you, and I'll do that, is the local indicator report. This is year 2 of 2 local indicator report. If I'll just read from the slides that I have is
The 25-26 local performance indicator self-reflection?
Yes.
No?
Oh, you have the document? Yes. Yeah, you actually.
Page 792.
You definitely have the document in there, right? So there are 10 indicators. Many of these are just data, but the local indicators are things like, is our schools in good repair? Right, so I have to work with a maintenance on operations person. He does a fit report, so he goes through and makes sure all, the facilities inspection template, is that what it's called? Because we need to report, that we don't have leaky roofs or rats, or so that's one thing that gets reported on. Another is the implementation of academic standards and professional development. So how are we doing on providing professional development and curriculum for our educators? How are we doing about parent involvement in education? And lastly, school climate. And so that is all in that report. Those are all evaluated through a rubric that is given to us by the state. And so it's a lengthy rubric that as a district leadership team we go through. I self-rate the district and then bring it to the principals in a district leadership team meeting and say, what do you think? Are we spot on with this? And we have usually a pretty good discussion. And then I ask them for evidence that we are, rating ourselves the way we are. And so that is in the report in the narrative area. For school climate, we rely on Youth Truth data, and you can see for the most part that our school climate data, so information about belonging, relationships, we pay attention to a question called I enjoy school most of the time, or do you like school? Do you feel safe during school? All of those have gone up. We had a slight decrease at the high school around do you feel safe at school? A 3% decrease from the year prior. So that is the local indicators. That gets uploaded into the dashboard. So that's something that I'll do tomorrow morning, hopefully once you guys approve this, because it's not something that the data systems can just upload, right? I have to put those numbers in. Did we give ourselves a 4 or a 5? And why did we do that? And then I have to cut and paste the narrative that's in your packet. So you'll see that again when the data dashboard gets released, and we're hearing that it's going to get released earlier this next school year, right? They're getting better at producing this data and getting it on the data dashboard. So that's one of the fun things Tiffany will get to do, is review the data dashboard. Certainly it'll become before January, but we're hearing it might come even earlier than that because the state's getting better at compiling the data. And then another piece you have in there is the LCAP federal addendum. For many years, the state was able to convince the feds that our LCAP can serve as the document that reports how we use Title I through 4 monies. A couple of years ago, the Fed said, no, we need our own report. That LCAP doesn't actually do what we want it to do. And so there's a separate document that says, Title I, this is what we do with the money. Title II, this is what we do with the money, and so on. And so the federal addendum outlines that. It gets updated very minimally year to year. We pretty much spend our federal dollars on the same things year after year, right? Title I is for paraprofessionals, additional school psychology, psychologist, and then big picture learning. Title II is professional development for our teachers and principals. Title III is a dwindling amount of money. It was $30,000 this past year for our English language learners. And then Title IV, we spend wholly on mental health. So there's a lot of different things that Title IV can be used on, but we use that for our mental health providers. And then a new fun thing, at the very bottom of the page that I have displayed, the LREGB. I'm getting better at saying LREGB. This is a funding source from the state of California that came in during the pandemic. So it's the local recovery, is it Learning, thank you. Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. So this came in during COVID. We didn't get these dollars this year, but there's a promise that we're going to get the dollars coming next year. And because of that, we needed to do a needs assessment, right? What do we need this money for? And so we use these funds for our, again, mental health partial salary that is supplemented by Title IV. and paraprofessionals in our youngest classrooms. So every classroom in the K2 can have a paraprofessional. So it's kind of an overlap with Title I monies that makes that funds that we need, right? Title I doesn't pay for all the paras that we have in K2. So we combined funding sources in order to provide paraprofessionals in our K2 and make sure that we've got 2 full-time mental health providers. So plenty to read in there. The next step, as I've said before, I'll ship this off to SCO tomorrow. They'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb. There's a meeting on July 28th, hopefully, with SCO personnel, with Debbie and Tiffany, and they'll go over any feedback that SCO has given us. Never in my time have we gotten substantial feedback. It's always usually a big pat on the back, and they tell us our LCAP is stunning and something that they use as an exemplar when they get new people, and they say, you know, can we continue to use your LCAP to show other people how it's done? So, you know, there will be some feedback. There's usually, like, you know, you found a typo, right, where we missed ELA and math was switched. So thank you, yay, somebody read it. Yeah, so they'll, not every line. All right, well, SCO will read every line. Usually it's just minor little things of that nature. So Tiffany and Debbie will take this home in late July. If for some reason there's major changes that are needed, they'd need to come back with you, but I don't anticipate that happening. So looking for approval for all these documents.
I move that we approve this final draft of the LCAP.
And I'll
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to 11.2B, Children and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative fee schedule, presented to us by Kevin.
Thank you. So the Children's and Youth Behavioral Health Initiative. So it's a mouthful, it's another acronym. And because of that, try to make a little bit of a more relaxing PowerPoint for us, okay? It's June. It's a June report. It's true. I can't guarantee that you wouldn't get a report from me like this in September. But
Kevin and I were thinking next year's June meeting, we make Hawaiian themed.
Right.
Do it.
Attire, yeah. We'll do all the PowerPoints like
I'm
this.
halfway there
Yeah,
today.
just very summer.
So,
Yeah. So we could bring decorations from that.
There we go.
I'm going to a memorial.
So we could definitely go that route. So we're seeking approval ultimately for an expansion of an existing contract with Paradigm, who currently we already use for billing in a similar way under Medi-Cal. And so I'll explain a little more about it as we go through this, but I just kind of wanted to set that context as we move forward. So that said, let's go on to the next slide, Debbie. Thank you. So just first we're going to start with the background and then talk about some what I'm terming bridging grants. I don't know that anybody else calls them that, but that's what I'm calling them. And then talk a little bit about what this fee schedule actually looks like, and then kind of where we are with onboarding and the process for getting going on this. Okay, so the history and intent of this bill. So, and go ahead, next slide. So we've been doing for many years, probably upwards of 20, 2 kinds of billing of Medi-Cal. And and I could explain all these acronyms to you, but it's probably not that helpful. So there's the SMA and the LEA BOP, which sounds kind of fun, right? We're going to BOP. And so this is only for kids really with IEPs. So students that have IEPs or 504 plans, the state has authorized us to essentially bill Medi-Cal if those students have Medi-Cal, because they see that some services that we provide at schools are also services that these students would be eligible for under their Medi-Cal coverage. And so for years we have had our speech teachers, our school psychologists, bill, occupational therapists as well, they bill for the services they provide. Our school nurse also will bill for hearing and vision screenings that we do, both the grade span screenings and also when we screen for IEPs. And so that's kind of where this is coming from, but it's limited to kids with disabilities, that also have an IEP and a 504, and also only Medi-Cal. Okay, so next slide.
I didn't realize that we've been doing this. That's new information.
New information for you. And you know, it's one of those things, most of the things in in my department tend to be flying under the radar. That's kind of how we do things. So, and it's, I don't know if it's lack of interest or if it's just, this is what we do though. And so when we see a pot of money we could get a piece of, right, district, we lean into that. And so that's what we've done with special ed. We're always trying to get, maximize our revenues. The legislature in California has been very helpful with that in many ways. And so as we moved into the pandemic, one of the things they saw was we needed this increase in mental health services for all kids. And so they allowed us in a limited way to begin to bill for some mental health services for all kids, that is kids who, whether or not they had a disability. And so we've been in this kind of a gray area. And then they also gave us a lot of other grants that we were able to use for health and wellness, mental health and wellness. So the Cal Hope grant, we've been using that grant to help subsidize our operation of our wellness center for the last couple of years. The community schools grant, also we did a community schools implementation grant. That was 2 years. We looked at whether we might be able to go for an additional grant after that, and we were not eligible. There were other federal and state COVID monies, as you know. I don't have to tell you guys, we got flooded with money in those days. And Healdsburg, we used a lot of it for mental health supports. So we funded the wellness center, some of our other mental health practitioners. We got other staff on board. But now these grants have all ended. So, and I myself am closing out these grants. I'm doing the final reports this week and next week. Cal Hope is done, community schools is done, and Debbie does the financial piece of that. And so these are all sunsetting. And so that's why we are reaching this moment in time. Whoa, said the legislature. What happens now, right? Because all of us have been advocating for this. And so they hear this, right? They're lobbied. There are other organizations that are collections of school administrators or special ed administrators that lobby the legislature. And they're all saying, hey, what do you expect us to do now? And so the legislature, in its infinite wisdom, came up with an acronym. Nope, we're not there yet. So they came up, before we get to the acronym, they came up with a couple of things to kind of help us move forward. So we're going to do an expansion of this Medi-Cal billing that I'll get to. But in the meanwhile, we got lucky, and we have good partners at SCO who've been really plugged into any kind of money that we can bring into Sonoma County. And so the two grants the state came up with are called the Capacity Grant and the Certified Wellness Coach Grant. And so the Capacity Grant, both of these grants are going to provide some short-term funding, it's only 1 year, as we learn how to and become eligible to access this fee schedule. So the Capacity Grants, that's going to next year give us, this year and next year, about $78,000, and that's we're using that to support infrastructure and capacity for actually billing on this, and other costs that we have associated with implementing that billing on the fee schedule, including paying extra money to Paradigm because they're going to be one of our main contractors for doing this. And then the other grant was a Certified Wellness Coach grant, and this was a pretty innovative grant, and we got 3 of these, 3 separate grants that total around $240,000. And what we can do is use that money to help subsidize the wages this coming year for 3 of our employees who have been able to qualify themselves as certified wellness coaches. And so that's a pretty unique thing that the state did, because certified wellness coaches are not licensed the way that an MFT is or an LCSW is. But the state has said, okay, we've got a lot of people at schools who are kind of maybe lower level practitioners, not meaning lower qualified necessarily, but not certificated, but they're doing good work for kids. How can we allow them to access this fee schedule as well? And so there's a training that our folks went through that was online. They had to generate a certain number of hours. Some of them had the other hours. Some were generating them this year. They got their certification, and so now next year when we start the fee schedule, many of the activities that they engage in, we can bill for. And so that this grant will allow us to learn next year how to do this and give us some time to figure out how we keep these folks, we get them billing, and then we can kind of see how much money are we generating, and so how can we then work to continue to sustain these into the future. So these are these bridging grants. Yes, please.
I thought you were.
No, it's okay.
So 2 questions on this page. So did you say the $78,000, part of that goes to paying the partners you'll talk about in a couple of screens, or one of the partners?
Only one of the partners, Paradigm, but we could also pay that from a different fund. We're using it for a variety of things, mostly to do with building our capacity to bill on this fee schedule.
Okay. And then certified wellness coaches, who oversees them? Who's responsible for them?
So our wellness coordinator, Kim, she is going to be overseeing that. And she helped them get across the finish line to become those wellness coaches. So she and Corey also will be, they're going to be positioned in our fee schedule as, it's called an ORP, ordering and requesting physician, even though they're not. It's
Right,
a
so
Medi-Cal term of art.
They're licensed.
And they're licensed. And so our wellness coaches and anybody else who's not licensed bills under their number, essentially.
And they're responsible for them, right? And they're like, they kind of, if you're billing under your number, you're kind of responsible for their actions.
You
and
certainly
their-
have a certain level of responsibility around that as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they both report to me, so ultimately I'll have responsibility over that. But then we hand it all over to Chris when it gets really rainy, really shady.
But I mean, there is a certain kind of responsibility as a licensed
Correct.
therapist.
That is correct.
It's
Yes.
not you
and
or
they
Chris.
and they take that very seriously.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
And we couldn't be more fortunate to have Kim and Corey on staff. So, yeah. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so the fee schedule. We're finally there. Next slide. I have my little title slides take up too much space. So in a nutshell, the CYBHI is going to expand our existing special education Medi-Cal billing. All right. It's going to be focused really entirely on mental health services. And our therapists, our certified wellness coaches, our school nurses, school psychologists, and others can bill for all students now. This is the big part of this expansion. In addition to Medi-Cal, we'll be now able to bill private insurance as well. So right now, if we have a student that is being seen and they have Kaiser or they have Anthem, we are not able to bill for those students. But going forward now, we will be able to do that. And so this will all happen on the back end. The parents aren't going to see a bill or a super bill or anything like that. It happens kind of in a different way with one of our partners, and I can explain that on the next slide. And so it does sound complicated, doesn't it? I've been on a number of meetings. I was on a call with one of the partners, Carolyn, today, who also had on Paradigm. I had both these guys on. Carolyn in particular, their role in the universe is they're a billing agent. They're a medical biller, right? So in a way, what we're learning to do is become medical billers. Luckily, we have a couple of organizations that we're going to use to interface so that we don't have to do so much of the heavy lifting. So the first is Paradigm, and that's our existing LEA BOP contractor, and they will bill for us and handles the secure file transfers. So that's a huge lift for us because that some larger districts are beginning to do some of this on their own without a company like Paradigm, and so they're using their capacity grants to hire legions of Medi-Cal billers out of doctors' offices, right? Because that's who knows how to do this kind of work. Carolyn is the California Department of Healthcare Service. That's who's overseeing this whole project. It's California Healthcare Department of Healthcare Service, the DHCS. Their chosen vendor for managing all of the payment structure, receiving the bills from districts, processing the claims with the insurance companies, and then getting the money back. That's all happening with Carolyn. They're sort of the middleman. And so I've been speaking with them every month for the last several months to make sure that we're on track to be able to do what we need to do with them. Paradigm is also really, really helpful, and Paradigm is very helpful, just like with the Medi-Cal billing, which I didn't say earlier, but under the law that created that and the CYBHI, contractors like Paradigm can receive 10% of whatever money we get in, and that's how they're incentivized to do the work. So somebody has to pay somebody, right? So they're in for their 10%. And the nice part about this is they work really hard to make sure that we bill as much as possible because they get more money when we bill more. So, and they're not mean about it. They're very, very helpful. Judy, I sense you have a question.
I do. Who sets the fees?
So the
fee schedule.
The California Department of Healthcare Services is who set it.
So that's set for us.
And that is set for us, and it's going to be evaluated yearly. Yeah, it's already changed once since it first came out.
And this is through Medi-Cal?
No, it's the Department of Healthcare Services.
So
yeah,
we're not affected by if Congress passes those huge cuts in medical care.
I have to say, I don't think we are, but it's any.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. This is
No, Medi-Cal is California's Medicaid.
Yeah, but it's not. This program is a California program.
Okay.
And it's going to bill insurances, and the insurances that it will bill are most private insurances and Medi-Cal. It won't bill. I just found out today it will not bill federal insurance. So if we have families that are military families, they have TRICARE. Those will not be families that will be able to bill if we see their children. But that's about it. So locally, though, the biggest, most of our kids are going to be under that umbrella of Kaiser, Anthem, and Medi-Cal.
And Kevin, I don't know if this is still like a moving target, but I have some trepidation about asking our families for their private insurance as part of, and then the school providing services that parents maybe approve or don't approve, how that might impact their insurance costs and all those things. I just feel like it's sort of a thing that we haven't asked families for, and it seems like some families will decline, and some people's insurance status is going to change if they lose their job, or life situations change. And I guess I just have some concerns about, I fully believe that we should be providing robust mental health services for students, and that it's super important, but that bit of like the piece of kind of people's private information, it just represents a really big cultural shift to me, and shift of expectations. And I have had a conversation with someone from SCO kind of outside of this context about just, that it may be completely appropriate for that change to happen, but I just wanted to say that.
It's a heavy lift. I'm nervous about that too. Yeah.
Do we already gather, though, like health insurance information, especially for athletes? Don't we?
The only place that we
have access, not for billing or anything.
Not for billing, like for an emergency.
The only place that I have directly provided our insurance information is on field trip forms.
Right.
Every field trip form has all of our kids' Kaiser information on it, including their membership number. Yeah. And I have to say, like, even after all these years, writing it down every time and knowing that the teacher's carrying around a stack of those numbers, and maybe that goes back to a time like when I was a single person, my insurance rates would have been deeply impacted by any healthcare choices that I made, choices or not, right? And so that's one of my concerns, especially because students are accessing mental health services needed at school, that their parents may not even be aware of them going on. And that may be completely appropriate. But then if that has financial impacts on the family, then that creates a different.
There's got to be workarounds in the system around that, because there is confidentiality,
right,
for older students. Go ahead.
No, I can speak to the other piece. Go ahead.
I do think, like, one thing to remember, like, we have these 3 grants now that are enabling us to have these 3 positions, which are going to serve kids. And the idea is that we can have more mental health services by being able to bill. And there's going to be kids who we can't bill or don't have insurance or whatever it is. And we're not going to turn people down. But without the capacity to bill, because these grants will go away, we will lose positions. Right. So this is a way for us to augment what we have, or actually, it's not really going to augment. It's going to keep what we have currently. So
right. And I'm in favor of that. Yeah. I guess I'm just pointing out that, we're asking families to provide personal information that they're unaccustomed to providing, and that, it potentially does have a knock-on effect. And I think we also have seen, that Kaiser's really changed around their mental health services over the last few years after they had a strike and, all kinds of things. So it may be just part of a shifting culture towards there being just greater access to mental health services for everyone, which I completely can get behind. But I just...
No, it's a great point.
And I'm sure every other district who's doing this is dealing with all of the same kind of privacy issues. So hopefully there'll be a way to
there's going to have to
transition.
Yeah,
for sure. So one of the things SCO has been doing to help us out, they've been running a community practice that I've been going to as well. And this topic features heavily in discussions with other district leaders who are working with SCO and our partners to implement this. So there's definitely workarounds to this. One thing that I can tell you is that the legislature and the law itself is set up so that you know the explanation of benefits that you get at home when you access your health insurance, that those will be suppressed. Those won't go to families. And the services provided at schools don't count against deductibles or anything else like that. That's all carved out. They thought of that. And so on the next slide, I think I have a little bit more about that. So I'll go through this, and then I'm going to come back to that question, though, Trustee McAllister. So these are some services, sample reimbursements that I wanted you to see. The fee schedule is about 10 pages long, I think it was. So there's a lot of different things. So this is just a few things and kind of give you an idea of what the service is and who can bill and what those rates are, just so you can get a sense of where we are with this. So something like health and well-being coaching, face-to-face individual initial 30 minutes. This is something our people are doing all the time already. So Christina, who is at the front desk of the Wellness Center, she's one of the ones who's now going to be a certified wellness coach. So now doing the job that she's doing, we can have her bill, and she can get basically, $66 for a 30-minute time with this kid. So that's very helpful. That starts to add up, right? Obviously, she's not going to be doing this work all day long, so it's not like it's going to completely subsidize, but it's definitely something it's a significant amount. I put the next line on just so you can see that there are other things that aren't as significant. So you can notice that doing coaching face-to-face with a group is not nearly so significant a reimbursement as if you're doing this one-to-one. I just throw that out there because this is the sort of calculus that we'll make as we look at the fee schedule. What are we going to take the time to bill? Because it's challenging to bill a little bit, right? That's going to be a learning curve for our people as well. Some of them have already been doing it. If they've been doing it with the LEA BOP, they're already used to it, and the interface and the software piece where you do the billing, it looks identical. So that won't be as much of a heavy lift for, say, a school psychologist who's billing on the fee schedule. Crisis psychotherapy for the first 60 minutes. So this is if we have a kid, we're doing a threat assessment or we're making a determination. If we have our MFT, school psychologist, our school social worker, then that's reimbursing at $126 for the first hour. Individual psychotherapy, I think these ranges are interesting. 16 to 37 minutes is $67. 38 to 52, $89. 53 plus is $131.97. So one of you was asking who sets these fees, right? How they figure this out, I don't know, but I'm sure there's people who get paid way more money than all of us, right, to figure out these fees, and they probably have actuarial tables and all kinds of things. So anyway, but these fees are subject to change. They could go up or down, and I think to your point, Trustee McAllister, about what could happen in the out years on billing on this and with Medi-Cal and all those kinds of things, we don't know, right? We don't know what the state will do to that. Next slide. And so just a few more things, family psychotherapy. So we can actually have a family come in. Kim or Corey or one of our school psychs could bring a family in. With or without the student there, it's a little bit different rate. If you have the student, you get $3 more. It seems so arbitrary to me, but nevertheless, these are the way the numbers look.
So I actually had because I saw that on there and thought, are we doing this?
We are not that I know of. But this could be something that could be useful for us to look at doing, whether or not it was on the fee schedule. It's a nice idea. Our NPS schools will do family therapy more than we do.
And I guess I feel like if this isn't racking up with you're having to pay through your out of pocket or all of those things, then this could be an amazing resource for.
It could be an amazing resource for
like
families,
students and their families in a way that doesn't have the same impact on your insurance.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's a great point because you would have no deductible if your kid saw a therapist at school. The bottom one, substance abuse, not tobacco and alcohol counseling, that can be reimbursed, brief interventions. We're doing some of that work. So some of these things we're doing. One thing that we're not doing a lot of is what's called targeted case management. That's relatively new on the LEA BOP side, but this is when our school nurse, for example, maybe is working with a complex case complex student health needs. And when they had an IEP, maybe they're on the phone with Stanford or whatever, and they're trying to put together a plan to keep the kids safe at school. All that stuff becomes targeted case management and can be billable. And so I'll work with our school nurse on that. But now we can do the same kind of thing for kids if they don't have disabilities as well. So if we have our therapists calling around and trying to set up, whether it be appointments or gathering records, all that kind of stuff is rebillable at this point. So a couple more slides is all I got left. This went a little longer than I thought. I'm sorry. So what are we going to intend to use these funds to support? Well, certainly the Wellness Center with our licensed therapist and our certified wellness coach. Marcy Becerra, our third certified wellness coach, is going to be at Marcy Becerra, and she is a LCSW intern right now, but so this will also help her. She'll be able to bill. Continued student mental health with our licensed therapist for the elementary and secondary schools, and then MTSS, because it will also help us support Tier 1 and 2 interventions for students with and without disabilities. And so we'll look at how we use all this funding as we move forward and as we get a better idea next year during this sort of building year to find out, okay, what kind of revenues really can we expect as we move forward on this. And so onboarding, and this is where I'll get a little bit to the consent and things like that. So next slide. So the next step. So we're considered cohort 4. I chose cohort 4 because cohort 3 we would have been trying to do all this in January, and we weren't really ready for that. And honestly, neither was the state. So with the partner meeting I was on today, the rep from Carolina was telling me we're in pretty good shape now because we've really ironed out all the wrinkles on cohort 1, 2, and 3. So you as cohort 4, you guys are going to be in pretty good shape. And I've been realizing that as well, listening to what some of the problems that some of our previous adopters were dealing with just the state not really being ready to go on this. So we're signed up. We've got everything signed that we need to sign. The last thing we need is your approval on this paradigm expansion tonight. Partner relationships. So we have those are set up with Paradigm, Carillon, and Provider Connect. Provider Connect is just an interface that actually I found out today Paradigm is going to effectively manage. So we probably won't have to deal as much with Partner Connect, but we still Provider Connect, but we still signed up with accounts with them. So we're ready if we decided to jettison Paradigm, which we're not going to do because we're not that. So consent and insurance, that's really our next biggest step. So what we need to do is kind of figure out how we're going to obtain consent from the parent to see the kid, that's A, and how are we going to get and store that health insurance information. So there's two ways people are doing this. One way is to do this at the point of service. So in other words, if we have our therapist identifies that this kid could use some therapy, then we'll have a letter for him that is going to be his consent letter, and it'll also say, hey, you know what, and we'll have some brochures and flyers to help the parent and say, you know what, it would help us out if you would give us your health insurance information. It's optional. We'll keep it in secure, and we're going to bill, and this is how it's going to look. So we'll explain to the parent in that point of service what it's going to look like and hopefully obtain consent and the insurance information in that interaction. If we don't obtain consent, then we wouldn't see the child. If we didn't get the health insurance, but we got consent, we would still see the kid, right? So we're not going to, and we're not allowed really, and ethically we just wouldn't do it. We're not going to see kids just because we get paid, right? We're trying to see, and this is the same is true for our special ed billing, right? We don't not see a kid because he doesn't have Medi-Cal, right? Or we don't, or if the parent doesn't give a consent on Medi-Cal, it is what it is, right? We move on. One of the things that's interesting about consent, and Trustee President Lopez could speak to this, that if the child is, 12, I believe, is the age for self-consent, 12 for mental health services. And so the tension there it can become, or it's greater than 12, I think. 13, yeah, greater than 12, 13, 14. So somewhere in there that we have an age limit where a kid can self-consent or self-ask for treatment. And so then if we didn't have the parent's information, we wouldn't be able to bill, but then we wouldn't want the parent to know, because if the kid is telling us things confidentially, doesn't want the parent to know. So that'll become a kind of a thorny issue that districts are looking at. How do we solve that? one way to solve that ultimately, and what districts are and what the state would like us to do would be ultimately to collect everybody's insurance information at enrollment. So that is a really heavy lift and not something we're going to want to do next year. That's something that's going to take a lot of evangelizing, if you will, in the community so that people feel comfortable and understand what we're going to be doing with this information. So that's going to be in the out years. That would be the most efficient way to do it. And then we have secure file transfer. So whatever insurance information we can collect can now be actually stored in Aries. Aries has created fields in anticipation of this. And then that can be transferred with our usual data upload to the other system. So, but for now and next year, as we roll this out, we're going to look at getting the consent and the insurance information at the time of service with the person that the parent is most familiar with, which in this case is usually the therapist. So, yeah, exactly. So, and then all that, we're going to be ready to bill September 25 and beyond. And I think that's my last slide. Chris is hoping. Oh, to sum up, this we've kind of summed up. I'll just say it's about sustainability. We want access to funds for long-term strategies to support health and wellness as we move forward. Accountability. This dovetails right into our LCAP goals, 3.2, 4.2, climate and belonging. And then MTSS, being able to respond to students' needs in real time in a setting that students spend the most time in. So, any questions? Last slide. Just questions.
I assume you've all kind of talked about this and made the decision not to ask for the insurance at this point. I mean, or for next year. But
as I say, point of service. If we have a kid who's going to be seen, yeah. But
you're not. You just feel like we're not in a position as a district to just put it in that back to school packet, that registration packet, and see who, like with a description of what's happening and how students are finding such benefit to having this mental health available to them on every campus. And I don't know, sometimes it just doesn't hurt to ask and see, like, maybe you get half, maybe you get none and we have some work to do, right? But I don't know, like because I feel like if you do it at point of service, this is going to be a slow one at a time. Yeah. Does the student okay with that? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
It's not a bad point. That was my initial thought, was just collect everything fast and hard. But when I talked to other districts, they were experiencing some challenges with that. And kind of some of the challenges, the things that you were saying, Trustee McAllister, were the kinds of things I was hearing. So it seemed like kind of, go slow to go fast a little bit. And maybe by January even, we're going, nope, we're ready to start sending something out and asking parents for this. Or at least we're starting to hold maybe some, we might hold some community meetings.
A little town hall.
Town hall, just to begin to make it a dialogue more than, because I feel like if we roll it out too quickly and we get a negative response, and that negative response is out there. So having some early adopters and saying, hey, look at the success that we've had with this. We've had these, that might help us out. But.
Well, and I do think just more information out to our parents about the mental health services that are available is a really good thing.
Agreed. So we'll work on that for sure.
So I have a question about who does all this work? The billing and things. Is that your department?
So my assistant does, Kim Riff. So she has taken on and has been doing our LEA, BOP Medi-Cal billing and our SMA Medi-Cal billing. What she does is work with Paradigm. She uploads the files that they need on a regular basis. She updates our provider list. She makes sure that our providers get billing done, all those kinds of things. So she oversees that, but the invoices and the monies come. I think Lynette in the business office works with Kim on that. You do reports to Paradigm quarterly, okay? Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. So that's so this represents a little bit of an increase in some of what we're using the capacity grant for. is to help have Kim have more hours so that she can help build this program and expand it with us. So, thank you. Other questions?
Thank you so much, Kevin. That was a lot of information. And I really think the evangelism is necessary because when we fill out all the paperwork at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of personal information that's in there. And it's also like just a big heavy lift to get all that information in every year and updated for each of our students. And I know that it would be a flag for me if all of a sudden I was being asked without context to provide additional personal information that could have financial impacts to the family. I would have a lot of questions about why I should provide that and what it's going towards. And, you know, I think that's going to be a common response. And that if you understand that it's building this robust program and giving, you know, our students much greater access to all kinds of coaching and wellness and so important to then that's a whole different feeling about passing over that information.
Yeah, agreed. I think reassuring people that it won't affect their health insurance benefits or cause changes in their rates, things like that, or at least, yeah, not directly anyway. The rates seem to go up no matter what anybody does. So, all right, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. That was a lot of information.
That was an award-winning,
but it was good. And I love the PowerPoint. Yep.
So
it
do
was
we
great.
need to?
Yeah, this is an
motion?
action item.
So I move that we approve the contract with, what's the name? Paradigm. Providence.
I'll
Pick a P.
Second.
Paradigm.
And
All right.
I'll second, or did someone second already? Oh, you seconded.
Beat you. All right. Next we have addition.
Oh.
All in favor? Sorry.
I.
Okay. All right. Moving on.
Can I just need a 5-minute, but you could.
Yeah, we could choose
start-
to take a break
start.
now. It's all right.
Just it's freezing in here, and we're already 2 hours in. I could really use a 5-minute thing. If you want to start, actually, I'm okay with you starting, and I'll be right
Okay. I'll go kind of slow.
This one will be quick anyway.
Yeah, this one will be quick. The next one's what's most important.
Yeah.
So a new requirement from the state is that we have an instructional continuity plan in our safety plan. So Debbie brings forward the comprehensive school safety plan every year. It's a binder about this thick, and there's no new requirement. And that is the instructional continuity plan. It is part now of the safety plan. What this is ensuring that we have a plan if there were an emergency like a pandemic again, right? That we've documented how we would respond. You know, I could see this being helpful when we have a large earthquake, when we have a wildfire. So there are a number of events that could trigger the instructional continuity plan. The way this was developed is I basically took everything we did during COVID and put it together into these couple of pages that are now in the school safety plan. So the state did provide a bit of a template and a few things that had to be in there, like your communication plan, right? That's a required element. Just to highlight, we have, engagement activities. How will we engage? So we talk about within 5 calendar days of an emergency, we will. And there's a list of everything that we'll do. So we have a list, right? When this happens, what do we do? So because everybody's stressed out when there's something like this going on. There's another section about access. That was a required piece. How are students going to access educational services? And again, we did a great job, I think, as a school district, making this change when the pandemic first hit. I made sure to speak specifically to serving some of our students that tend to need more services. So, for example, students with individual health plans. We need to make sure that they're getting what they need, right? Our English language learners, we're making sure that they're getting their designated ELD time. Our foster youth, right? Student populations that are more fragile when something like this happens, we wanted to point out. We talk about independent study. We talk about professional learning for our educators. So what are we going to do to help our educators shift to something like distance learning again? Social, emotional, and mental health supports are covered in this. So, we'd have counseling and other mental health check-ins on a regular basis. That's outlined. asking our teachers, as we did during the COVID, to do daily or weekly SEL activities, continuing to do our universal screening. We're going to be moving to Panorama. There's a section that talks about staff wellness, making sure that, you know, our educators and our staff are taken care of, right? If they're impacted by whatever it is that's making us have to shift and not being able to teach on our campuses. What do we do with after-school programs? That's in there. What do we do with food and nutrition services? What kind, again, of not just professional development, but what kind of staff training and preparation? Right, we did this during the pandemic where we all had to learn how to take temperatures on people's heads and use, you know, the test strips and whatnot. So there are different things that are going to come up. You know, emergency communication protocols, making sure that folks know how to use our remote learning platforms, doing simulation drills. And then the last piece is that once it's all done, there's an after action report that we come together as a district and say, so how did that go? What could we learn? What could we have done better? How could we be more prepared if this happened again? You know, probably within our lifetimes, something will come up like this. And so it's good to have it written down in our safety plan because memories are short. And, you know, even now I sometimes am like, what did we do during the pandemic? How did we do that? And so this kind of outlines that. We are asking you to reapprove the safety plan because this is now a part of it.
Right. I'll move forward with reapproving the safety plan.
Great. I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Update on the HUSD District Arts Education Plan.
So I'm going to invite Tiffany Doherty and Linus Lancaster up here. They're going to run the show.
Just another fancy PowerPoint.
Yeah, you're getting.
So it's the June month that makes you all creative.
I really have been a participant in this and not a leader in this. It's been really wonderful. Trustee McAllister has been participating, and also Trustee Potmasil a bit, and Tiffany and others and Linus have really. This has been, you know, you talk about shared leadership and flattening the organization and that we're all a part of leading different efforts. Really pleased where we're at. We have the plan. So Tiffany's going to run us through kind of where we're at. And of course, you know, invite Linus to add some color and flavor as he always does.
That's funny. Linus and I talked about what he was going to add, and he's going to add really critical information. Okay, so we can go ahead. A group of us got together about a year and a half or so ago with some impetus from Linus and also from the state in terms of Prop 28 money, which is specifically for the arts. But then Linus wrote a grant for us to put together a plan. And so when we were awarded that grant, then we all came together and started getting our thoughts around the arts plan. So first of all, we decided, what is it that we really want from an arts plan? We can't just go and spend some money without having a goal, because really a good budget starts with good goals. So we then took another step back and we decided to create an arts vision. And I am going to read it aloud because I think it sounds great. We wordsmithed it really hard. Okay, so every student in Healdsburg Unified has access to high-quality, standards-aligned arts education, and as a result, uses creativity and self-expression to deepen their understanding of themselves and the world around them. So it is a really heartfelt statement, and you can tell was created by some creative people. I am not including myself in that, but I did help with the vision, but I didn't consider myself super creative. Okay, next slide. So we started then with the vision, and then we looked at the California Arts Framework. And so that's what this slide is referring to. Implementing that framework is going to take a pretty big lift, because all elementary teachers are also arts teachers, just like they're also PE teachers and health teachers. And so they have all of those content standards. And so that does include the core content of the arts. So we did some brainstorming. That piece is kind of coming up on the next slide, the different timeline of what we worked on. But we did some brainstorming with the framework and with the vision. And we thought about what is it that we want people to be able to do and what is it that we want them to know. And so we had posters everywhere. We also considered what are we already doing? What are students already involved in with the arts? And so we had all of these ideas everywhere, and then we started putting them into categories. We categorized them and we recategorized them, and we compared our notes. I mean, we put a lot of thinking into this, and we came up with 6 categories. These are our overarching objectives of the arts plan, and you do have the actual draft. I'm going to call it draft because there's plenty of opportunity. It's not an in stone document, right? There's plenty of opportunity for feedback, and we want to get some particular feedback next year before we consider it a final draft, and that includes the board's feedback. So in the arts plan, you'll see these 6 overarching objectives: community, which is going to include, and I have it open here on my phone, that's why I have my phone up here, which is going to include goals that have students' art going out into the community, as well as the community coming in to help students to think about their art and to teach them pieces of art. And then empathy and inclusion is really all about students using art to express themselves, and not just like there is a self-expression down there, but it's more, how do I cope with the emotions that I have? So it's really your social emotional learning piece is the empathy and inclusion, and also includes some pieces of cultural understanding and cultural consciousness, like we talked about a little bit yesterday. And then teaching and learning is very focused on the teachers, the staff members, and what do they need to know and be able to do. So knowing the frameworks and thinking about how they will collaborate, and how PLCs can be a driver for the teaching and learning of the arts as well as other subjects. We have student-driven assessment. One of the most powerful things you can do in education is have students self-evaluate and determine their own efficacy. And so we really wanted to have a piece for that. So this is things like portfolios and student-led conferences. And then we have access, and that's saying that every student has access to arts education. There's more to it, but that's the nutshell. And then ownership of learning and self-expression is really how am I as a person reflected in the arts, and how are the arts reflected in me? And I'm going to actually let Linus talk about the timeline.
Thank you. Don't sell yourself short. Tiffany did the graphics on Canva for the packet. So here we have a rough timeline of what we have done and where we hope to go. Just for a little bit of background, I randomly ran into Mike Potmessel on campus one day, and he asked me, "What are you doing about Prop 28 funding?" And my response was, "Nothing. I don't have time to think about it. I'm too busy," because at that time it was something out on the horizon. It wasn't real yet. About 6 months later, Debbie Yarrow called me from Creative Sonoma and said, "Hey, the money is on the way. It's time to write an arts plan." And so in we jumped and wrote the grant proposal, and which was awarded, and then we were off and running. We spent the first good chunk of time working with a consultant that the grant paid for from Creative Sonoma. And as part of that, we were handed a lot of templates from other districts around in the county who had already written art plans, and we were looking to them sort of as examples of where we might go. We spent a lot of time not making a lot of quick progress. And after about 5 months of this, it became very clear to us that it was not working, that we had spent a lot of time trusting the process and trying to, go along doing it the way that it had been suggested to us, but we just didn't feel that it was right. And so we decided we need to stop, reinvent the wheel, and start all over and do something that is right for Healdsburg and for our students. And so with that was really a refreshing, nice, pivotal moment where John Weller especially and Dana Adams stepped in and just said, we need to do this from the ground up and do it very differently. Dana deserves a big medal, by the way. She really did the lion's share of the writing and did it brilliantly. We worked on, we started with who are our students and who would we like to be, who would we like to be as a district, and how does this impact arts education? We went through, as Tiffany mentioned, just endless brainstorming and reshuffling. How do you wordsmith an 11-page document for a year with 6 people? But it's very easy when you are constantly having to shift between where do we keep a bird's eye view versus where do we need to be specific. And this is an action document. So it's fully thought through in terms of this is something that's telling us exactly what it is that we need to be doing. There's not a lot of curriculum in it. That's the easy part because we can come up with lesson plans anytime. But this is really about having a guiding document that summarizes for us what it is that we need to do as a district based on what we're already doing, which is some excellent things, but we've got some gaps and we have the expertise and the knowledge within the district to fill those, but we need a guiding document and a vision to prompt us in that direction. We have gotten this thing drafted. As you look at it, if you haven't had a chance to yet, I hope that you'll find that it's a concise and tight document that says what needs to be said, and it describes what we think is a vision for Healdsburg. And again, we would love to have your input. We know that we need input from the community, but we needed to get through the tight parts first without it getting so messy. We had to kind of narrow it down. All the while being aware that documents written in silos sit on a shelf. And so this needs to be a community document, a living document that is part of our students' experience, but we had to get the foundation done on our own with a smaller number of people we were not all like-minded. There was a lot of debates and discussions, but it was refreshing to me and remarkable to have those in a conversation with a lot of really intelligent people where when we did disagree, that we very quickly were able to come to an outcome that was satisfactory to everyone. We will be going out to seek community input. Prioritizing goals and actions is something that could be made difficult, but it doesn't have to be. Again, we're already doing a lot. I appreciate the fact that you gave us time to come and present from Marcy Becerra Academy and the students in the Healdsburg Art Department, the guest lessons that they've been doing. That's just one of many, many examples about the way that this can be implemented, but I hope it's a powerful one. It certainly has been for them. And the nice thing about that is that it's thanks to our students. They're the one, without them, I couldn't have done any of that. And so we see that even within our student body, we've got people that have knowledge and experience and passion that are going to be willing to help lift this thing off the ground. Determine funding needs and sources. That's a big one, of course, but again, what we've done so far didn't require anything extra. I look forward to having conversations in the future about how to expand upon that and keep it sustainable. But there are many things, again, that we're already doing, and so this is not something that needs to be seen as daunting or scary. The Prop 28 money has some contingencies, but it is ongoing funding. Finalize the arts plan. Well, we feel that we've got a finished document. However, it's a living document and it's going to continue to evolve. It needs your input. It needs input from the community and from our students. And that's going to modify it in the near future to some extent. And then principles determine implementation, steps and school-based timeline. One of the things that the arts plan calls for, and it's in partnership with the city's arts and culture master plan, is a greater degree of collaboration, not only among ourselves, but among different creative nonprofits in town, between the city and the district, and among different campuses. And again, we've already looked at an example of that. So this is where we are with it, and again, I hope that you'll find it to your liking when you have a look. It was based on a whole lot of work, but there's more that needs to be done in terms of bringing it to life. And yeah, thank you. Oh yes, thank you for reminding me. Part of the process was that we made sure that we were very, very closely aligned with the California content standards for visual and performing arts. Every step of the way, we were consulting those, educating ourselves about them. They had changed a good deal since I had looked at them last time. They're much broader now. And all of the stuff that was going on when I first started teaching about discipline-based education and that type of stuff is all out the window. So they had changed a great deal. I had to look at them again. And we were also very intentional to make sure that this is aligned with the LCAP, because we want this to be part of something that's going to be taken seriously and that's going to be part of doing what we know that we need to do as a district, not only for creative education, but for education as a whole.
And then our last slide does recognize those folks who have worked really hard on this plan from the very beginning, and some of them are no longer working on the plan. But I agree, Dana deserves a medal. Linus deserves a medal. Jonathan Weller deserves a medal. Dr. Fender. I mean, there's a lot of work. People have put in just tons and tons of work. And we also do really appreciate the board members who have served on our arts committee, because your voices is very impactful in terms of helping us really, I would say, kind of winnow it down and get it to that tight place. So we've had some teachers on the arts committee as well, and we're just really excited about this document and what we have to bring to the schools. So that's kind of our next step. And we are not asking for anything right now. This is not an action item. This is just a conversation. We felt like the document itself was enough for you to digest for a little bit. Yeah. Do you have any?
Well, it was such a pleasure to work on it insofar as I did. I was like a latecomer to the organization, but I'm super, super excited about the extra money that the district's going to be getting, and about the kind of mandate and commitment to integrating arts at every level. I think it is so, so important for the reasons that were outlined really nicely in your slide deck here. And I know that it just was a joy to work with everyone and learn more about kind of where everyone was coming from. And, really excited to see where the additional money and the additional organization and vision and will lead to curriculum here in the next couple of years, and something that our students can really use to continue to learn and grow throughout their TK through 12 experience arts-wise.
I just want to say it's very evident that this document was created with much care. It's incredibly thorough. It's great. I love like all the measurements. I think it's a great roadmap for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And Tiffany, you do have some chops on Canva. Yeah.
I especially loved the "You Are Here" star on the timeline. That was really good. Totally.
Any reports?
I don't think, do we have had a report, Linus? No. Okay.
CSEA report?
Yeah, you're the only had a member here, so yeah. So we don't have any reports unless there's a trustee.
I just want to say that sculpture is beautiful, and I wish I had a place.
Corazones.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's a snake?
Yeah.
I think the rest of the agenda is fairly quick if we want to try and fire through, or we could take a break. It's up to you guys.
I need like a 2-minute break, but I can step out.
All right. 3 minutes. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Business, adopt 2025-2026 adopted budget. Approved.
Good evening.
Hello.
Okay, here's the race to the finish line. I'm just going to review the budget that I went over last week. There's been no changes, but I just want to review a few key points. One being that we've used up all one-time dollars. This budget doesn't reflect the one-time dollars that we anticipate are coming. So hopefully that'll be an increase in revenue after the beginning of the year. Our contribution to special ed has gone up, and rising costs with all costs in the district, from books to utilities to everything. We started the year, we plan to start the year with a $4.5 million beginning balance. Revenues coming in at a little over $33 million, and expenses right now are budgeted at $36 million. A deficit spending of $2.9 million, and we plan to borrow $1.5 from Fund 17 at the end of the year at this given time, leaving us with the reserves of 8.28. 3 years out, we'll still meet the mandate of 3.33. We'll go 4.77 and 4.95, well below the board mandated reserves, but we do expect that to change within the next 6 months, most likely. We've reviewed property taxes. I'm budgeting at about 70% of 23-24, not 24-25. And 23-24 actually was a high year. RDA came in at over $4 million. We have.
Can I interrupt you? She predicted our RDA redevelopment funds within $20,000, which was amazing. Yeah, and it was in our favor, 20,000. So that's good.
Since our last meeting, our second installment of RDA for 24-25 came in.
Like Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just saw that. Yeah, it's just a little sliver of overall property taxes, but on one hand, it's great because it's not less, but on the other hand, there's always the hope it's going to be significantly more. So 20,000 is a little disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was excited because it was a little bit more, but in the big picture, it's like we're used to it coming in a lot higher, and it just shows that this is all reality, right? Our overall prediction for property taxes for 25-26 is a 2.1 increase over what we have for 24-25. Other than that, I think that recaps the main highlights. Did you have any questions regarding the 25-26 budget?
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it is an action item. We need to adopt the budget.
25-26 adopted by.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
11.1C, Resolution 25-34, the authorization to make budget transfers between fund balances and expenditures at the close of the year.
So the next few resolutions we're going to go through are all resolutions that are necessary for me to close the books at the end of a year.
Right.
So this first one is to make budget transfers as necessary to make payment obligations at the end of the fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
No.
Aye.
Oh.
It's a resolution.
President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez.
Aye.
Trustee Del Rey. Aye. Thank you.
The next resolution, 2535, is to journal funds from one fund to the other to make sure we have positive cash balances in all funds as of June 30th. I'm actually doing that right now today for 24-25. This resolution is for 25-26 to enable me to do that.
So moved.
I'll second.
President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez.
Aye.
Trustee Del Rey. Thank you.
Next resolution, 2536, is requesting a temporary transfer of funds from the county treasurer for 25-26. I touched on this last week when I talked about the budget adoption and deficit spending, and we would pass this resolution to put in place in case we needed to borrow cash at the end of the year. The papers attached to it show that I'm predicting the cash at the end of 25-26 to be at 2.9 million. This is in case that doesn't happen. This resolution allows us to borrow up to 85% of our revenues for the year, which would be, like 28 million. I'm only putting the resolution through for 15 million. This is past practice in Healdsburg. We've done it for many years, and since I've been here, we've never had to follow through with it. But it's a precautionary.
Okay.
I move to approve.
And I'll second.
President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez.
Aye.
Trustee Del Rey. Thank you.
Next resolution, 2537, authorizes the superintendent, myself, and the director of curriculum and instruction to sign contracts on behalf of the district for the 25-26 school year.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez.
Aye.
Trustee Del Rey. Thank you.
Next item, resolution 2538, is the declaration of indefinite salaries for the 25-26 fiscal year. What this allows us to do is basically give retro pay to someone. You can't go back and pay someone for a time period they've already been paid. So if we were to approve salary increases and someone's already been paid for that time period, this needs to be in place to go back and give them retro pay.
Right. So moved.
Second.
President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez.
Aye.
Trustee Del Rey. Thank you.
Next resolution, 2539, is regarding the sale and disposal of surplus property. There's two areas listed here. One is the transportation yard. Supervisor Bill Lewis has been spending a lot of time cleaning up the old shop back there and found a lot of old stuff that we don't use. Broken windows, broken seats, things that have been removed from vehicles, and they've been there for 10 plus years. The other list here is from the librarian at the junior high, who has gone through all the class novels and removed a lot of old novels that aren't in the curriculum anymore.
Right.
Just the way this was worded was really made my head tilt about the titles were flagged to ensure our reading materials align with the district's academic goals and learning outcomes. And it flagged just makes it look like
Yeah, it's not the
bad
greatest.
things.
Yeah, I think partly too because we've really been looking with a critical eye to make sure that all of our library books and our reading material that's is culturally sensitive and representative of a wider stories, authors. So I'm thinking maybe that was in her mind when she used the word flagged. I mean, not all those books in there are, some of them are just old and we don't read them and it's not,
They're not on anyone's curriculum plan,
Right.
reading list or
Right,
whatever.
right.
But it's just the way that was worded made
Yeah.
me very uncomfortable.
Okay.
So it's like
Pass that
we're
along.
just getting rid of old books. We're not.
That's all it is.
We're not making
Yeah.
Yep.
choices.
Well,
I mean, we are.
we are making choices.
We're updating. Yeah.
Like there's like wrinkle in time. Like it's just anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
But
But
we're
thank
not
you.
using
I'll
the
pass that
banned-
along.
We're not using a banned book list.
Right. Right.
No,
Thank you.
no such thing.
Anyway, just a.
Yeah. Yeah. Words matter.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, I move to approve the
Second.
obsolete stuff.
Second.
President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Velasquez.
Aye.
Trustee Del Rey.
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry, surplus, not obsolete.
Okay, the next item, I'm going to slow down just a little bit. As you know, it's been an ongoing issue in the district, the high cost of health benefits and the increasing costs every year. It's been a big topic in negotiations. We've spent some time last year pursuing, possibly going through RESIG. Things changed, we didn't follow through. This year it's come up again. I've reached out to the Volition Group, which is listed here. It's a consulting service that does this for schools, and they kind of bring the bargaining units and the district together and facilitate, form committees, educate the staff, let them know where these rising costs are coming from. The district doesn't control that. We have, no say in that. I think it's money very well spent, and I think the district is long overdue in looking into this. I'm actually really excited about it. If we were to move forward using this group, but the timeline would be like in September, we would start forming committees. They would come in, educate the staff. Hopefully by October, we would do an RFP and go out to different benefit providers and see what the costs are. And this would all be to implement in October of 26. So it's like a year-long process.
I was going to say.
And that's something that the staff doesn't understand. We can't just, in April say, hey, we want new benefits starting October 1. It's not that fast. It doesn't.
They kind of think we can change during open enrollment, which is not.
Yeah, it's not the case.
And open enrollment's the month of October.
Correct.
Yeah.
I did learn with meeting with them that, the larger the group, the better the rates, which CVT is one of them, which we are going through CVT now, and they will still probably be up there in the top 3. But it's also a time to look at our district and how has it changed. Retirees leaving the district, retirees that maybe are deceased now that we were paying benefits for. All of that needs to be reevaluated and see what is it really costing the district, and that can change the rates from the providers.
This seems very timely to me on a number of fronts, so thank you for bringing it to us.
Yeah, sounds good.
I agree, and I think it's a very strategic approach to it to work together with whatever all
bargaining
the
units.
impact, the bargaining unit, et cetera, so that everyone's getting the same information and making a decision together.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, excellent.
I like the idea of the education because it needs to be, to me, the education needs to be to more than the bargaining unit. It needs to be the staff because the staff informs the bargaining unit what they want.
I meant the staff actually.
So it needs
they would
to-
come in and meet with staff.
And I really like that.
And then we would form committees after that.
And then if there are changes, that impacts not just employees, but also retirees.
Correct.
Because that's also another area of education.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this is an action item.
I move to approve.
All in favor? Aye.
You're waiting for the reso, huh?
Yeah. I was like, wait, that's not a reso. Yeah. All right. And then last, agreement with the Isaac group.
Isaac Sports Group. So we've been talking about how we're going to move forward with Aquatic Center and what does that look like. And the sale of that bond is probably 2 years out still, but the design phase and getting all of this together is going to take years. Chris and I and Tanea, we've had meetings, we've spoken about it, the relationship with the city, how are we going to collaborate together. This group this is what they specialize in. They will come in, meet with us, help us figure out what programs do we want? What do we want to get out of this? We'll form committees. We'll discuss it. They would start from the very beginning to that and take us all the way through a joint use agreement, implementation, all the way through the design and the building of it. The cost is $45,000. They would be working with us for a few years. It'd be paid out of bond dollars. I do have a rough estimate of the cost of the project, and with that built in, we're still under budget for what the project would cost. I think it's a great way to go, and I think it's a great way for us to have help working with the city and someone to help us facilitate it. Did you have any comments, Chris?
No, I think it's money well spent. And we honestly just saved some money on a turf field. So.
Well, seriously, I think, that we always are going to have feedback on how the bond money is spent and how, and what the result of the bond, projects are. And I really, really think that doing like the best due diligence with the best information with professionals at the beginning of the design process is going to really may have a huge impact on the finished pool and programs, because I think, the public has entrusted us with a lot of money and a lot of responsibility around the future of water safety and sports and athletics and recreation in town and all those things. And so having just the best information and planning, buy-in from the community, knowing which questions to ask, such a big deal, and really is going to yield the best result, I think.
I don't think we will have, I think this will be probably the most complicated project that we've taken on in terms of building, just in term, I don't want to say contentious, but there will be no shortage of opinions on what it should be and who's going to program it, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and these are experts in helping us navigate that. So I think it'll be
many parties impacted. Yeah. How did we find this company? Can I ask?
They worked with Sonoma Valley.
So you have a good reference?
Full facility up there.
And you have a good, because it's unusual to have a 2-year contract with somebody. And so just want to make sure this is
and I put in the packet, his bio, I put all the information in there.
No, I know. That always looks good.
There's not a lot of people that do
this. Right.
It's a niche.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing about this group that was a benefit too is they don't take a commission. Most of these consultants do.
It's actually really quite unusual with because sometimes they're trying to get you to go a certain route and get a commission.
Do they get paid by the company that you eventually sign with? Is that how it works?
No, usually they do. They take a commission on top of that, but this is just a flat fee.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie.
Board of Trustee reports, comments, requests for information. No?
I would like to tell Aaron that I really appreciate your being honest tonight. I thought it was important that information come out.
All right, we don't need to go back to closed session. So our next board meeting will be August 20th, 2025, here at City Hall.
Have a great July.
Yep.